In this Genshin Impact guide, I'm gonna give you 5 insanely powerful free-to-play characters that really everyone must have. We're gonna go over why they're so good, where you get them from, how to build them, and which teams synergize extremely well with them, so that at the end, you know exactly how to build a powerful account that can take on anything the game throws at you, even without requiring a luck on the wishes or spending a single cent. So, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Our first must-have character today would be Xingqiu. Xingqiu is a Hydro sub-DPS who deals really good damage and also provides great defensive utility for your entire team. Now, given the fact that he's Hydro, that automatically means that he is going to be a very valuable character, since so many very strong reactions like Bloom-related ones, Freeze, Vaporize, and Electrocharge require Hydro in your team, and he is very good at providing that from off-field. His elemental skill surrounds your active characters with rain swords, and these stay on field even if Xingqiu is swapped out. And then as long as these rain swords are up, when your active character gets hit, then one of these rain swords will break and soak up a portion of the damage. At the same time, it also increases your interruption resistance, and as if that's not enough, with Xingqiu's passive, if one of these rain swords breaks, then it will heal the active on-field character for a certain percentage of Xingqiu's maximum Hydro damage bonus. However, even if his skill is very good, the main part of his kit would be his Elemental Burst, which summons homing rain swords that are flying towards the enemy you're currently attacking and homing in on them, also stays up even if you swap Xingqiu out. These homing rain swords not only deal good damage, you also gain the maximum number of rain swords, like from your elemental skill, and they cannot break as long as the elemental burst is up. So both his elemental skill and elemental burst stay up even if he's swapped out. They apply tons of Hydro, which is very important for many strong reactions in the game, and that then naturally makes him super versatile in his team options. Speaking of teams, well, he pretty much fits everywhere. If a team needs Hydro, no matter which Hydro reaction, Xingqiu is generally always a good choice. Now, when we come to his artifacts, it depends on whether you want to use him more as a off-field damage dealer or more as a supportive unit. If you want to max out his damage, then the Emblem of Severed Fate 4-piece is of course the best option for him, giving him not only energy recharge that he needs for his burst, but also increasing your burst damage by 25% of your energy regeneration, making his homing rain swords really strong. However, if you, on the other hand, want to have him as a defensive support, then I would suggest the Noblesse Oblige set, which gives you plus 20% burst damage, so that's nice, but after triggering your burst, it will give plus 20 attack for 12 seconds to all party members in your team, making them much stronger. But even if you're on a more tighter budget and you cannot really afford a good 4-piece emblem or Noblesse Oblige set, then you can easily go and mix and match 2 pieces like 2-piece emblem and 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, or maybe also swap in a 2-piece Heart of Depth, giving you plus 15% Hydro damage. Now, if all that sounds good to you, then the next question would naturally be, where do you get him? And that is very simple because, as I said in the intro, none of the characters today will require any luck on the banner wish. Of course, if you pull on the standard banner, you can always get him, but even if you're unlucky, then you can always get him from the Star Glitter shop every March and September. And looking at the date that this video here will be published, that means in just a couple of days, you can go to the shop and get yourself a copy of Xingqiu. Oh, and by the way, in the near future, I also want to upload in detail character guides on all the characters on today's list, where we explore their artifact sets and their weapon options way more, and also look at how you best actively play them in your teams. So if you don't want to miss out on that, you might want to think about leaving the channel a sub and joining the crew. But on to the next one. Up next is Bennett. Bennett is a Pyro support, he is in the thumbnail, and he has one of the most insane damage buffs in the entire game, all while at the same time providing heal as well, and a ton of it too. His elemental skill is a simple pyro hit with his sword if you just tap the skill, but you can also hold it for a stronger combo with a plunging attack. But generally, in practice, you only use his skill to get some elemental particles out of it, and in that situation, it's best to just tap it, generating more particles over time. This also becomes much easier with one of his passive skills, reducing the cooldown of your elemental skill by half while being in the aura from his elemental burst. And speaking of his elemental burst, that is the main part of his kit. His burst creates an aura on the floor where every active character in the aura will be healed until they reach 70% of their maximum HP, and if they are at that point, they get a damage bonus instead. However, if you happen to have Bennett's first constellation, then you will always get this attack bonus no matter how high your HP are. Now, which teams synergizes Bennett well with? Just like Xingqiu, he is just universally great as a healer and buffer at the same time. So unless you're running a team with Electro and Anemo characters that swirl a lot, in which case you would get unwanted overload reactions from his burst aura, he's just so useful in pretty much every team that you could basically consider him a hidden 5-star unit. And speaking of artifacts, because he is such a great supporter, you naturally want to pair him, in an ideal situation, with a 4-piece Noblesse Oblige set for the fat plus 20% attack for the entire team when he triggers his burst. But if you're on a tight budget, then also the Instructor set might be a good option because it gives elemental mastery to other characters. Now, how do you get Bennett? Like Xingqiu also, you can pull him from the standard banner, but in May and November, you can get him from the Star Glitter shop, which means until November, you don't even have to wait that long to get your hands on him. But, and that's the big but, if you watch this video timely after upload, then you might be able to get him from the Mega Mecha Melee event that is going on for the next 2 weeks still, and it will provide you with a free copy of Bennett. So, what are you waiting for? If I was you, then I would get the free Bennett from the event now, and then in November, when he comes up in the Star Glitter shop, I would buy another copy for his first constellation that I mentioned earlier, which makes it so that you don't need to wait until you get up to 70% HP before the attack bonus is applied, but you get that all the time then. Oh, and just really quick, if you're still here, then I hope you found the video helpful so far. And I know it sucks to ask for likes, but especially as a small channel just starting out like me, it would be an immense support if you could spare a thumbs up to help the video spread to more people. Thank you so much for your support. But let's go on. The next character on our list is also a Pyro one, but a sub DPS, and she goes by the name Xiangling. Now, Xiangling does insane damage to the point where she even outdamages some 5-star characters. Her elemental skill summons your little panda bear Globa, who is pretty stupid when it comes to targeting enemies, I gotta admit that, but he deals okay damage. However, his main use is his energy regeneration, because he gives you 1 pyro particle every time he hits an enemy, and that's really good because you want to have a lot of energy to have your burst up as often as possible. And speaking about her elemental burst, that one goes by the name Pyronado, and it deals insane amounts of damage. Now, not only is its scaling really good if you look in the stats, but it also has some hidden properties that the game doesn't tell you about. First of all, it doesn't have an internal cooldown. What does that mean? Now, usually if you hit an enemy with a certain element, it takes some time before you can apply that element again. However, with Xiangling's burst, every time it hits an enemy, it can trigger a reaction or apply Pyro without any cooldown. And that's not the only thing, it also snapshots. Now, what does snapshot mean? Well, it's actually pretty simple. If you are under the influence of a buff the moment you trigger your elemental burst, then the buff will apply to the elemental burst for its full duration, even if the buff times out before it ends. In other words, if we again look at Bennett for example, then we could pop Bennett's ultimate to get the fat damage buff, swap to Xiangling, trigger her elemental burst while standing in the aura of Bennett's ultimate, and then we can even run out of the aura and the damage buff would still apply to Xiangling's burst for the entire time that it's on. This is extremely useful, and the best about this is that both your elemental skill Guoba and your Pyronado stay active even when Xiangling is swapped out, meaning she is one of the most amazing off-field DPS characters in the game. And if that already sounds good, then wait up, because I'm not even done. Now, I haven't really spoken about weapon choices in this video because I think it would go a bit too far, but for Xiangling, there is a special weapon in the game that you can get just by playing, and it's called the Catch. You can get it from the fisher in Inazuma if you catch a certain amount of fish, and what makes it so good for Xiangling is it gives you more burst damage and more burst crit rate, and it is not only a completely free-to-play weapon, but also probably one of the, if not even the best weapon for Xiangling in the game. Now, speaking about teams, as I already said, Xiangling likes to be in a team with Bennett, not only because she can benefit from Bennett's burst, but also because of the Pyro Elemental Resonance, which happens if you have 2 Pyro characters in the team, and it will give everybody in the team plus 25% attack. That's great. Now, generally speaking, you would want to use those 2 Pyro characters, Bennett and Xiangling, in a meld or vaporized team, and that makes it really good because you could pair them, for example, in a vaporized team with Xingqiu, who was also on the list and is also a great character, or in a meld team with Kaya, who you're naturally gonna get like 10 minutes after you start the game, and is also a very good unit. Let's also quickly look into her artifacts, and unsurprisingly, she also loves to have a 4-piece emblem of Severed Fate because it gives her more burst damage. However, if you run a vaporized team, then you might also want to have a Crimson Witch set because it gives you not only pyro damage, but also increases the damage from vaporized reaction, and in case you're on a tight budget, you could also mix the two pieces of Crimson Witch and Emblem of Severed Fate. So, last question would be, how do you get Xiangling? And this one is actually super cool because while you can of course get her from the standard banner and you can get her from the Star Glitter shop like every other character on the list, you can also get her completely for free without any investment if you just finish the Spiral Abyss Floor 3 Chamber 3, which can be done early in the game already. So she's really super accessible for anyone. Up next, we have Fischl, who is an Electro sub DPS and also a great off-field character. And speaking of off-field characters, after Xingqiu, Bennett, Xiangling, and now Fischl as a 4th off-fielder on the list, you might see a trend here. Now, I know we have a lot of off-field characters on the list today, and especially if you are a newer player, this might sound a bit boring to you. However, if you look at the structure of Genshin Impact, then you will see that what you're playing is not one character, but a team of 4 characters, and only one of these 4 slots is going to be filled with an on-field character. Meaning if you have 1, 2, or maybe even 3 good on-fields, that's basically already enough for an entire account, whereas every one of these on-field characters wants to be paired with 3 off-fielders. In other words, having a good roster of strong off-field characters is going to be so much more valuable to your account than that one big on-fielder. But let's get back to Fischl. The main part of her kit is her elemental skill, which summons her Electro Raven called Oz. Oz stays on the field even if Fischl is swapped out, and he shoots at enemies dealing electro damage, making it a good electro off-field application. Her elemental burst, to put it very simply, does pretty much the same, even if it does some more initial damage once you cast it, and brings Oz back on the field. Meaning with her skill and burst, you can basically keep Oz on the field the entire duration of the fight. Also, one very good thing about her is her passive, which makes it that whenever your on-field character triggers an electro-based reaction while Oz is on the field, the enemy will be hit with an additional electro attack coming from Oz, dealing 80% of Fischl's attack as damage. So, long story short, Fischl is a great off-field electro applier and sub DPS, making her great for Taser, Quicken and Aggravate teams, and if you happen to have her 6th constellation one day, she's also great for Hyperbloom teams. Now, speaking about her artifacts, this one is interesting, because with the recent Fontaine update, we got a new set in the game called Golden Troop, and this is by far the best in-slot set for Fischl. It's like it was made specifically for her. However, be careful with farming this domain because while it's great for Fischl, the sets that you get from the domain are not as universally useful as some of the other domains are, so you might be wasting resin if you go for that. Another great option would be the Gilded Dream set, which gives her more attack and more elemental mastery depending on how your team is laid out. But if you're on a budget, then you could also just mix and match two pieces that give attack or electro damage like Gladiator or maybe Thundering Fury. Or if you're on a very tight budget, you could also always go for the 4-piece Instructor set. And if you don't want to have a copy of Fischl for yourself, then just like all the other characters, you either get lucky on the standard banner, or you can get her from the Star Glitter shop in January or July, together with Xiangling, meaning you better save up your Star Glitter for those months. Now, before we get to the last character on the list, I want to give an honorable mention to SUCROSE. SUCROSE is an Anemo 4-star character. She's immensely useful, and from her power level, she's also on par with some 5 stars in the game. The reason I didn't put her on the list is even though she is on the standard banner, she is only obtainable through wishes, meaning if you get unlucky, you're not gonna have a chance to get your hands on her for quite some time. However, if you got lucky and you happen to have her, then you got my blessing to build her as strong as you want and play with her, have a lot of fun. She is a great character. But now, finally, let's get to the last character on the list, and that would be Beidou. Just like all the others on the list, Beidou is an off-field DPS. However, she can also be used on-field quite effectively if you don't have a strong 5-star main DPS to fill that role just yet. Now, the reason she's so nice, even on-field, is her elemental skill. If you just tap it, it's a normal strike with her blade, dealing good electro damage. However, if you hold it, you go into a block position and absorb incoming damage up to a certain amount, and when you then release the button, you'll deal even more massive electro damage in retaliation. This blocking and parrying is very unique in Genshin Impact, giving her a super active playstyle that makes her extremely fun to play if you ask me. But no matter if you play her off-field or on-field, the main strength is still her elemental burst. This one gives you a protective aura that reduces incoming damage and also gives you a higher resistance to interruption, pretty much like Xingqiu's skill, but it also unleashes electro discharges towards nearby enemies, applying electro, dealing tons of damage, and even bouncing between multiple enemies, so it gets even more damage ticks than it might seem at first glance. And, as if that's not enough, Beidou's burst also snapshots, meaning if she had a certain buff on her the moment she casted it, this buff will be applied for the whole duration of the burst. Now, speaking about her teams, she is very versatile and fits well in every team that needs an Electro on-fielder as well as an Electro off-fielder if you have a better 5-star option to fill that role. Looking at the characters on this list, she would pair great with Xingqiu for an Electro-charged team, and also she is a perfect match for Fischl in almost every Electro-related team since Beidou needs a lot of energy for her burst and Fischl helps her greatly to generate that. But of course, she also loves Bennett as a support because of the snapshotting nature of her burst. And last but not least, if you like Dendro, then she can be a budget option as an on-fielder with Dendro Traveler, Xingqiu, and maybe Barbara as off-field options. Or when you have good 5 stars for a Dendro team, then she can still always be used as a great off-field DPS. Let's also quickly look at her artifacts, and unsurprisingly, she also ideally loves the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate to give her burst more damage, but alternatively you could also mix and match 2 pieces that give attack or maybe electro damage bonus. Now, how do you get Beidou? Again, very simple, either if you get lucky on the standard banner or in the Star Glitter shop every February or August. And this is the important one because as this video goes live, you still have 2 to 3 days left to get her before she will be unavailable for another 6 months, so what are you waiting for? As you see, all these 5 characters synergize extremely well with each other so that no matter if you're free to play or just a new player, you'll absolutely love them and use them even in very late game. However, speaking of new players, in case you're still fresh to the world of Genshin Impact, then don't miss out on my top 10 beginner tips right here that will help you immensely avoiding common beginner mistakes and starting your account out strong. Now, we see each other, hopefully in the next one, and until then, as always, travel smart.